Namo Guru Me Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Me Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Me Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kande Laje Gwenje Doga Raga Josa Bonde Chonze Chöje Jabo Gwenje Losa Seda Jeba Nende Jeso De Nanga Sende Bende Cheze Ala Ma Gebe Zonga Alo De Be Sona Shenjo De Ama Je Ge Ja Jozo She Je Ja Ve Lo Ge Sa Na Ve Ge Jo Le She Ta Be Be Ye La Me Ze Be Ta De Je Be De De La Cha Ye Wo Je Ye Na Zo Me Do Te Jin Do Be Na Ze Je Ja Wo Sha Ye Je Che Jin Ja Zo Se Na Xin Jo Che La Je Ba Be Kan Xin Do Me De Ne Sa Ba Ye Lu Ma Ye Ye Mi Ga Je Je Ba Ke Ba Ran Do Ba So Je Me De Cho Ni Ne Je Ba Ta Me So Cha Ni Me De De Ma De Jo La She Ye Ba Be Da Jo De Ye Je Go Bo Je Ye La Je Ze Ta Ja San Ba Namo Davi Se Yin Li Xian Ba Yi Sun Zhu Gu La Chai Doi Mi Ma Yang Ta Mi Na Ngo Su Gu Rai Da Si De Ba Do Mi Nu Den Ba Ra Ju Da Su Chi Ni Sa Bi Ge Den Dan Zhu Wa Gui La Kan Bi Dan Che Ba Ra Xie Zi Lo San Zhang Ba Yi Dian Bi Nian Bo Ren Du Sa Ji Shu Mi Mi Zi Vi De Re Jin Jin Re Zi Che Me Yin Bi Wan Bo Dian Bo Ma Liu Zhong Zi San Vi Da Kan Jin Ki Bi So Yin Zong Ga Ba Lo San Zhang Vi Sha La Su Wa De Mi Mi Zi Vi De Re Jin Kan Jin Ki Bi Zo Yin Zong Ga Ba Lo San Zhang Bi Sha La Su Wa De Mi Mi Zi Vi De Re Jin Jin Re Zi Che Me Yin Bi Wan Bo Jiang Bi Yang Dian Bo Ma Liu Zhong Zi San Vi Kan Jin Ki Bi Zo Yin Zong Ga Ba Lo San Zhang Bi Sha Wa De Ba De Za Vi La Ma Ren Bo Ji Da Su Ji Gu Bi Mi Den Zhu La Ka Jin Jin Bi Gu Ni Wu Zong Du Yi Wen Zhu Zhen Du Zong Ban Den Za Vi La Ma Ren Bo Ji Da Zu Ni Ga Ra Bi Mi Den Zhu La Ka Jin Jin Bi Gu Ni Shu Zang De Mo Wen Zhu Zhen Du Zong Ban Den Za Vi La Ma Ren Bo Ji Da Zu Ni Ga Ra Bi Mi Den Zhu Ka Jin Jin Bi Saman Jami Shira Baroji Maye Manga Namge Ngoni So Zorare Ye Je Je Ye Wa Te Zon Jave Yon La Sha Ze Alo Te Ya Tha Ga De Parai Ga De Parai Samai Ga Bodhi Soy Hoy Te Ya Tha Ga De Ga De Parai Ga De Parai Samai Ga Bodhi Soy Hoy Te Ya Tha Ga De Ga De Parai Ga De Parai Samai Ga Bodhi Soy Hoy Gere Tongda Jajo Shiva Da Medya Nebe Jashi Deja Yo Zai Shi Be Ye Joy Shi Me Do
Sanje Sheza
Soje Zhonan La Chanchu Mardon Tani Jamsu Je Dagi Chuchu Jive
Sanje Rola Penje
Sanje Roma
Jo Sanje Sheza
Soje Zhonan La Chanchu Mardon Tani Jamsu Je
Dagi Chuchu Jive Sanje Rola Penje Sanje Roma Jo Sanje Sheza
Chanchu Mardon Tani Jamsu Je Dagi Chuchu Jive Sonam Je
Rola Penje Sanje Roma Jo Simche Tanje Tobja Lana Yangda Wazore Sanje Kobo Rinpoche 见面要讨论上第一些的咱们学生也不可能享受是学嘛成绩在咱们上不了学生。
May I remind every one of ourselves here to take a moment and do our best to cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment or Buddhahood for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should all participate in this Lamrim discourse, discourse on the stages of path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about page 2 from this Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the state of the path and enlightenment, volume number 2 in the English translation, page 221, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission followed by explication.
Teacher Dambamone Chasoji Nando de Jonga de Boko Gelonji Gatamji Sama Jevarate no Tembata Dalo Rotabo Shiva Gurvatinashu Mahibad Yalin Chorazala Chuba Yaniva Sage Tembilu Yoso Zobi Yalinji Nyamlin Jenny Long Yaboni Missivita Shido Chola Latin Kelabit Kelabit Boshes Damba Yang doing in the Tunjir minimum young. Lat Lama Soja Danis Hosa Batang Georgia go to morning Jubi Masan Yushasa de la Dini Lola Chavacon Kundi Pewa Ngevi Neva Yeting Zuba Javino Tamangamanam Jeshinica Naratevi Cheno Lola Rugum Rugi Yuvarashela Yanda Yang the Sembashi Javashi Toba Shegu Chu Jid Juni Semen Zinjang Sindi Changba La Lova Tela To Tomi Gujin Rala Tomba Ra Gumshin Ding La Tomba Jing Wai Cheta Goma Tizang Shi Di Shi Josh Gu Tidar Sambe Nishi Ten Gemi Ki Samba Tamshi Toba Imbi Bangzhen Xie Dikzhou Geshe Wana Xue Ne Tetar Mo Song Gewe Xinye Yang Tetar Mishe Nyamna Nyamni Koye Le Kala Minya Ba Xi Wun Te Me Na Teba Ni Pagla Yu Xira Mewa Te Lungi Xira Mewa Te La Ngui Kala Te Na Nguto Gwe Kala De Guto Chuna Xin De Geshe La Yenyane Karti Sardo Sogosuba Shiraji Rabdi Yo Sumde Todo Bado Godo Simje Jeton Shoto Bisharota Wani Dame Vete to Jigo Ninjota Mundi Cuba Goni Jo Nivani Rigby Ningala Kevi Shero de the Jilly Repeating a dollar, some of my shiver, Pojo, that the Minjur de Shenta Saji on the Yuga the social share some but devil, Mumba, no Saji, which Rado, Tezi, Bodom, La Penda, which so I repatam. Rani Shiva Share de Non Riba Sawani, Gubaya Chitaba in La Tetam Jijo Sanjitavi Shadu Sawani, Chitamevo Sumani Sinjana Jededa Chimido Kanamato Mever Dubi Swishivo Dubi Show Shawani Shiravati Sum Jivisan Tama Tungde Shawa the Shindu Don Jawara Shiva de Rang de la Ni Shin Shadalo Goni Shiva Jiva Yina Shin Ara Shiva Shinong Avata Tondo Ni Toba Yungu de Chu Shira Yuna Yajang Shang Yismena De Chang Sinji Chuba Minju Chuve de Simji Chibe de Doni Satumbi Shara Jiba Yinanji Mumbai Yudi Shini Joda Shiji So Shembu Ko Kono Me Barazo Shive Ta Shiro Sum Jeba Tadani Beji Tuba Su Gode Teta Marina Labje Zu Dongi Ni Yidung Jomadang Sarah Hindu among the Tevala, Mekawi, Changsinja, Lavjana, Lobaramin, Sendi, Shira, Jivi, Namla. Benander, Malababi, Malabi, Toma Kikin, 在现度，让拉上给学娃来送把单，现在我去拍去的了，就做不是为现在我听到了弄个你给咱姐凶性啊，拍进手了，3点拍进手了。3点了，娘邻居人把中山拿了那新啊了，娘说连别人把那人把挪不挪为，铁大给娘邻居那对吧？当然也是这边他中山县话，人家铁大我到今年不没比。现在我拉动现在是娘说让别人把当3点钟我现在娘让别人把学校那人就从结完我就当把叫着上就是是把结我上就是把上就是把参加。从康家他们就庆祝了的那上家我是长沙里庆祝日子，他说那天到送别的把他们把他是为小学生把他们就这把这边他们对吧写吧小啊，当时庆祝。感觉他这叫做进步，因为娘邻居你也懂，让他们把人在上山里跑叫出国的大给，让他们要走。小学养他把他把这边小学生把那你高不学习，这学生把那高不学习，要这些不写下。甚至当姐姐，哪怕他们这对普通说呗，就人不去，人不去呗，全部人不人了，这大，所弄的一些就说让他把让爸爸的没问题，这不是他让他们要都做为上。早就到屯吧，到微现在没都写说，他底下个是这里，他群众的底下感觉，他当时确实的，你不给他，你去新建呢，你他推吧没不过，去年跟推吧就够嘛的是，你这里他给他写成这些多。什么都得懂，他这个就是吧。去新给的开始是那个，就像咱们这写过，那你学么我写过写一下的话，人家这个，那个那种技术这个人是，哦，这什么的蒙古人到过蒙古现在日本这边那个说了，那到过蒙古现在那到过的个那边电信，可是的走的电信。到过以前电信被下把现在帮着开那个的，我听老说的话。现在刚做刚上我这的上了，那他的考过修的，现在他刚上我什么考过的，现在开始现在，老杨他把他电信的他这嘛现在，那到过刚刚电视说少呢，现在这个嘛，现在他的确实的写都的来的话，这些他那日本人是两个人呢。那到过蒙古是要么是那几天我听到下过这是，这了下些呢，本来大没完的，当没印象，这里呀，你是讲那边当没听的南北古本多，记得这样也里面是吧，叫下起来的话，我这里是的话，我给这弟兄的话，现在第时候了，第一南北忙呢，上些那是的这样子，南北我呢养大把钱呢，多的呢这。对家人东啊，刚刚听的养猪过来是，如果把电信养的时候就来是呢，东啊刚刚听的就是的话，电信养的么就东啊是要么的话，哦，现在的对着过来是，这个公我给了开始嘎他是那他大可能嘎是拖家咱们那个那些个那个是这个嘎是个话，你就听不到，那开始。我他们这些，唱了结巴这呢，我他们就唱完了不是唱把些，那结巴这呢，他电视都是怕结巴些呢，那电视他电视他演了就刚开始的咱们用的听着是吧？是的结巴这样有的是，现在电把他的了，这头发是个别是，现在他被。所以对那对于娘们子把穷处那对那对应个，怕爷那爷把真个， 어디에 유가 신게데 동부 퇴바 먹고 뭐지는 수디야도 파자마 신고 말와. 어디 오라. 진짜게 많이 받이 냠랭기 세스다. 어다 진짜 좀 맞은 받이 냠랭기 냠랭기 쇼레잖아. 퇴바지와 시제스라와다 냠랭 쇼레 퇴바지와 시다스 쇼레다 시험에도 저 텐션이 가지고 소 진짜 질베 땅에 와서 니비나 되지고 팬도 말와. 되죠. 대별 루용스 잡에 냠랭기 내라 예바니 미시베세 담배 시당 좋아할때 계랑도 수dum수dum다바 헬송네 헬송 당가 양도 양도 춘시제디 민놈장 사다 라마라 소아차도 다네 소사바다 제바제비 고트만네 죽베에서 유마성 유 차성어라 베나 Then law like kick, but Conan, Condi Pivy, never thinks about Java in was what they what those Chevy, whatever Mambo or those here, and this is a Karsa. Yamle nearly Kevashin in it. The draw the intermission and draws that you draw the Monto Shirawa. And that you can Minum Jan Jambe, Tigans, don't be because that source I did it or kill any don't bother. 지금다 주소 타바 헬송 이네 양은 양데 녜네 세다 소소 배서는 저거리 메시다 녜네 저거 같이 간다 손라 저좀 양다 양데 셰니 에드 민음 장 그래 세라와 민음 장네 티 살라마 소아타 소아타디 다네세 호텔 다 소사 이네 살라마 소아데서 같이 냠슬린 신이지 거라 살라마 소아다와 라마데 이로예미데 샤와데 시고도 본부와 인기라 중고도 모제어서 같이 추신내 시고로와 어디 인사 제바제고는세 소사 리뷰시에네 에네 틱베 민음아 장장시에 에네 민음 시고 장시 소사 리뷰 짠 마지는 에네 가르선 데려와 가래 에네 속소면에 레미 사본라슬라로와 셔도 소마디 잡조도 소마잖아. 이거 사고지에나데 이니 레메살레 사kam볼 중나 고 너야 디디비자요 말아. 어디까지 된사라. 어디시 미다. 고토는 주베 주성화를 베나 어디다 강가 산이 에니 민는 장 엔소소 집장시 넘버 탐지 송시나 이니 로코는 콘디 페니 에니 인팅서바 제와 이노사 시다디 가가 페나다 오레 알리타 대샤니 오 티데시오 그랬으겠다.
So Geshe read from page 221 to page 224 of the volume number 2 in the English translation of the Lamrim Chemo. That was to give us the blessing of lineage oral transmission. So we are back to page 221. And Geshe started to give explication. And so one of the things that we have talked about last week is this kind of contention that some seems to make, which is if you want to become a teacher to teach Dharma discourses to others, then obviously you have to listen to a lot of teachings, you have to study a lot, because otherwise you don't have much to talk about anything, right? So you want to be a teacher, then yes, you need to do extensive study or listen to teaching. But if you want to be a meditator, practitioner, then they said you don't need to listen to too many teachings, because you just focus on one thing, whatever your focus is, and just try to set your mind on it. Okay, and so we talked about how that contention is, problematic, because to become a good meditator and practitioner, we have to engage in extensive listening to teaching or study, so that then we have much to contemplate and much to meditate on. Right? It's not that teachers need to study to be able to become a sort of a big mouth. He didn't say that. I mean, to teach, then the practitioners don't need to know much, just focus on one or two things, as if that's enough for a practitioner. So that is a problematic contention that we looked at and talked about last time. And so, what goes with that is those who make that contention, they feel that if you are meditating, your goal is almost like to stop your thought processes, stop thinking. Yeah? When you think too many thoughts, then they think that is a problem, because from their perspective, every kind of thought is necessarily, what we call related to, or is a part of grasping at a self or true existence, right? So it's better not to think too much, because any kind of thought is problematic because it is a part of, or somehow intimately related to, grasping at true existence. Okay? So that's why the idea is when you're in a meditation, choose a focus, put your mind on it, don't think much, because thinking is problematic. Right? That's why they said you don't need to study much. When you study, then you think too much. And if you think too much, you've got a problem. And so we looked at how that position or contention is problematic. And the example they would give, say, if you are thinking about selflessness, or let's change this emptiness as your focus, then their idea is just simply set your mind on it. Don't analyze it. Don't do analytical thinking, because that is a problem. So you just simply focus your mind on it and don't think. Yeah. And Lama Tsongkhapa takes issue with that. He said that's problematic. Even when you think about selflessness, meditate, emptiness, you have to do analytical thinking. You have to alternate between analytical thinking and single-pointed focus. And so what is important point for us is, as we talked about this, we need to adopt a holistic orientation or approach to study and practice of Dharma. We need to have a sort of a complete picture of the structure of the path, and begin wherever we need to begin, but we should be able to see the complete structure of the path. If we only cultivate sort of a very selective path, we may succeed in that, then that becomes a partial achievement or accomplishment. Let's say we focus on appreciating and realizing deeply how fully endowed human form, precious human life, endowed with freedoms and enriching factor is a very meaningful, very rare kind of life, and all of that. And let's say we deeply realize that, but that becomes a very partial realization if we don't have a complete sort of a, sort of understanding or got a picture of the complete structure of the path. Or take another example where Geshe says, if we focus on realizing impermanence, subtle, right? And we do it very well, and let's say we realize subtle impermanence. Again, if we don't think about all other paths, then it becomes a very partial achievement and partial fulfillment, and that's not enough, to fulfill our spiritual goal. So as we talked about this the other day, that it is very important for us to engage in extensive listening to teaching. That's a traditional way of studying, study extensively, right? And so when we study a lot, then, we also have the option to be able to synthesize all the teaching. When we practice this, we can be very, do a very synthesized form of practice. And then wherever we need to expand, because we know how to expand it, because we have listened to complete teachings. And then we can also summarize it, bring it back home together. So we have that ability to be able to synthesize the whole teaching, focus and do practice, and then elucidate or elaborate it with the understanding of the teacher. So that is the proper approach to the study and practice of Dharma. And then also we talked about how it is not enough for us to be able to sort of engage in the intellectual exercise of the study. Listen to teaching, but really don't focus on the purification of negativity and accumulation of merit. Because those two types of accumulation we call tsoknyi, accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom is essential for our spiritual growth and development. If we only study, let's say, and don't pay attention to the accumulation practices, it's very hard to gain realization. The metaphor that Geshe used is like we have a dry seed. The seed is a really good seed, but the dry seeds needs all other conditions to be able to germinate, right? It must be put into the fertile soil. It must be watered. So if the dry seed does not meet all those other conditions, it's going to remain as dry seed. It's never going to germinate. Okay? So in the same way, if we only kind of engage in the pursuit of understanding and intellectual knowledge exercise, we don't do the purification accumulation practice, then it is like a dry seed that cannot germinate on its own. So it needs those favorable conditioning factors. And that's why those of you who have the text in front of you, on page 221, somewhere in the middle towards the end, there's mention of how we need to rely on excellent teachers, right? The virtuous friends, So virtuous friends could include our spiritual guides, but it also includes our Dharma friends, right? Don't get influenced by what we call, for lack of a better word in English, negative friends. Don't get blessed by them, because then things go out of hands. And then also, abide by our ethical practice. That's our foundation practice. And then also do the purification, accumulation practice, and do also study and meditation, contemplation. This is how we have to integrate, right, all of these things to be able to succeed on our spiritual path and journey. Let me see. So the bottom line is that it's not that meditators don't need to know a lot or study a lot or listen to teaching. It's only teachers who need to do that, because without complete listening to teaching completely, we feel very limited in our contemplation and meditational practice.
Ini peke cho sangpo tan cho. Ini tila ya la lama la suwa tab, ini mingnam jang so na, ini gom zhab khari gyawi ni wadi juksa pi nyuwa thon yul jia yaw re si kor, ta rwa, ta ti yaw rwa me to, tanda nyema ta sangye tomba shomde de uwe ta kongse tusun sangye ta, ini jaga chukto chukpo la ya kongse ruto mawa shungri, su kanga tangpo kongse jikpo jikyang re ba yisu, 근데 요마로와 시다 다 장은에 시다 고 이게 레터 shum로와 시다 레터야 간도 다 삼로 간가 다다 지가 메자 되어로 다 뒤야시다 다다 자 메자 어디 레터가 요서면서 도버를 요로다 다들 레터모 뒤가 대서 메와 다 소소가 대바도 좀 주셔야 되시나 오늘 자자 레야 유도지 뒤여도 요로와 어디 뒤들 다 간지 이제시는 다 딜 싸워도 다 렌데도 그래 다라와 너무 탐지 송선한다 그래서 렌데 수이 송다 뒤는 강간 뒤로 걸어와 거기다 너무 비슷다 되와 되와 그래서 너도 비셔 가 시작을 찾아라와 진짜 장동 가서 네가 송고 걸어와 얘는 다 괜히 너무 어디에 위기로 진짜 너무 탐지 또 섬사는 마당시 카레나리 셰네 에네 곰자는 에네 곰 가지 잡잖아 에네 거 주미야 요 말봐 어디셔도 너무 탐지로야 이 내된 시고레스타 제르 무지 두번 모이면 돼도와 어디 전능아 어디 레론데 다 현달 키진 신도를 해야 되게도 어디 제르 무지 단단 리루냐 버지 키진 희게자 가미도와 어시 에네 데서 domba tamzi songs. Then Yambalesum Chevres, song do I. She the domba tamzi song that didn't want to teach she and the Ganga didn't do his at all. Want to teach she and domba tamzi got to go Marwa. What did I get it? She thought she Tata di Picacarsa, Ganzu Yonde Karina, Tombo Shingas with your Mara. Tombo Magan, Gal Johnny Yaje, or make it Tombo around to shade the Yomara. She the other time, and some of them. 합 디드단다 디게 강가째 두 마리 상면주지 상마지오마레 시대셔야서 리아로 어디 쇼크 그거 당원에서 대존시나 근데 regret 거니 깨어요도 도토도. 저 뭐가 시작해 말아.
No.
저 어때 개성부에서 거기 넘버 탐지 린데 소야 돼.
So we're still in the middle of page 221. It is the second last paragraph. And so again, Geshe kind of emphasizes this point where Lama Tsongkhapa's kind of a unique approach is that we need to really pay attention to ethical practice as a foundation, and then build, so to speak, all other practices. So the ethical practice, most of us have received, many levels of, ethical commitments. We have taken bodhisattva vows, ethics. We have taken tantric empowerments. We have tantric ethics. And those who haven't received any of this, maybe you might have taken the ethical commitments of what we call upasaka and upasika, lay practitioners, and ethics. So those are our foundation practice. And if we don't pay attention to them, we kind of transgress them right and left. And then we say, I want to do meditation. I want to do a serious practice. Well, the meditation is not going to yield result because we have not kept our ethics intact. So here Lama Tsongkhapa tells us that abiding by pure ethical discipline, and then we rely upon virtuous friends, and then we engage in the purification and accumulation practice, and also listening to teaching. At the moment where we are, when we look at these things, because maybe our own lacking, it seems like we are not so sure. Can I really become a realized like all these other beings who have been realized? Because we are lacking in so many things. It looks like we have some kind of a doubt. We're not really sure about. We're kind of hesitant here and there. But the thing to remember is that if we don't fail in our own enthusiasm, in our own persistent efforts, the Dharma teaching is not going to fail us. We have the same Dharma discourse and the pattern practice followed by others, right? Including Shakyamuni Buddha himself, right? How he became Buddha, and then his teachings become available, and many others also reach enlightened state. And the great Mahasiddhas of India, the great adepts, all of them become highly realized. But in the beginning, they were just like us, very afflicted individuals, deluded, and kind of we don't use that word, but allow me, messed up, in the beginning. But somehow they did not fail in their enthusiasm, persistence, and efforts to follow the path, and they become highly realized, So we have the same opportunities, same ability to do that. At the moment, we may be lacking in many ways, but we don't have a doubt about the authenticity of the Dharma and the complete structure of the path that's available to us. If we follow it properly, we will succeed, and we will become realized just like any of them. And so when we talk about abiding by the pure ethics and all of those things, much of this really belongs to what we call respecting and following the law of karmic action and results, right? If we follow the law of karmic action and results, so that includes our ethical practice, isn't it? It's very much part of that, and the feasibility to achieve all kinds of realizations on the way, that could be established through reasonings. We don't have to just simply rely upon scriptural authority because the Buddha said so or somebody said so. Just based upon analytical reasoning and rationality, we will be able to establish how it is possible to gain realizations if we follow the complete structure of the path.
담박아만 남기 해내 장스 저다 되게다 영조 년대부터 송유하더라 nga tebe ton namse lo roki yebar chela ya yang de yin se ba jiwa shi to ba shi gus de de sha da ka don la ma de yiwa ya nga tebe chue namse gom je de ene lo roki yebar se de zan gangal pe male ba ru ru shi lo le to wa sha gores o de ta chi de teba ma bo shi ne ene 디게 공제도 로그가 줄려고 그래서 오러와 저봐 뭐 지고는 거도 로그 레베아스 거 요마러와 세다다 디 로그 레베아드 가르치는 내레레 칸디스테 텔롤링 예가 오러와 세다디 사지 너무로 지나 답변에 있는 땅고고다 텐저더니 가서 다 디마 신예 된지시 이치가서 신예 된지 대저더니 가지 엔 처음에 답았어야 좀 도시 기부 총호대 점들린데 기부 총호 가도록 도 사지를 시 도시에 in the Gibbon to hotel, then she shared Taber Batten Fayati, Kozudo Tiatroa. That didn't take what symbol of Shanju Semji and till Domboso in the Jevashiru of the or Tereso Genota, Domro took some of Gona, and even Ma bound some of the Kavakado Guina in Tevashi, Kavaka Guina, and the Lamsa later. That didn't just Jimena, Lamsa Cadu later.
So at the bottom of page 221, there is a passage which really contains, the message from we call the former excellent beings. The excellent here, the Tibetan word is Tamba Kwangwana, means former realized, realized beings, such as we have gone through the words of great Kadamba Geshe, those who are really, down to earth, highly realized beings there. So what they tell us that is after we have listened to teaching, we really need to contemplate over and again that teaching so that in our mind we are able to at least synthesize the whole teaching. We cannot remember every details of everything. Nobody is supposed to be expected to do that. But at least we have the complete outline of the teaching in our mind so that when we are doing contemplation, we know. Let's say, for example, when we look at the beginner's level practice or initial level practitioner, we said, right? It all starts with cultivating qualified or authentic spiritual gurus, and they rely upon them. Then we think about the significance of fully endowed human form, how rare, difficult it is to find this life, but yet greatly meaningful. But at the same time, this wonderful life is also very impermanent, so it's not going to last forever. So we think about the impermanence. And then we also, see the reason why we need to go for refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then follow their advice, which is really to follow the law of karma. So that is pretty much sort of the practice, focused on by the initial level practice, because they want to have a good rebirth in the next life at least. So they have some kind of outline there, right? And now you want to add more to that. Let's say we want to be on the intermediate level practice. Then one of the most important thing is we have to really remember the Four Noble Truths, right? The Four Noble Truths, it holds the Buddha, Dharma, and discourses. So what the Four Noble Truths tell us is what are the things that we must get rid of, abandon, right? The true truths tell us what we should not do, right? Then what are the things we should do, adopt. So the Four Noble Truths give us the complete structure of what needs to be abandoned and what needs to be adopted in order to be free from samsara and be liberated, right? So we have kind of a complete outline there. And then we say, I want to add more to that. Okay, I want to be advanced level practitioner. I want to follow the Bodhisattva's way of life. Okay, now we said, well, Bodhisattva, what is essential is to understand and cultivate bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. So once we have cultivated it, then we abide by the Bodhisattva vows. We engage in the 6 perfections, which include Bodhisattva's practices, and right, and then combine it with the wisdom. So at least in our mind, we have this kind of a complete outline of each level of practice and reflect on it over and again in our contemplation and meditation.
어디 다 사진을 들어줘야 사모도잖아. 얘네 사모야 사버 좀 해야 얘네 가실 다 영화통돈 저장. 얘네 뒤 오마들 야 샤르금 소리 거기도 네 세서 양들 셈바다 지와도 또 와시고서도 어디 건지 딜이야 사모동도 잘 십자도 뭐 시야요 봐. 어디 시에 샤브레스 티자려. 다 쉬지에도 좀 내세 심지 장바를 저와 로바텔라 가서 심지 장바를 로바라 초미시면다 초미세가 초 잡셔야지 야고스도 초 리셔야지 뭐 이게 메로 제도 심지 장바스도 되게 다 가지 심지야 일을 마지 심바 남도 가셔야지 근데 되지고 상관도 되는 초요 말다 그래서 팬도 말시고 봐.
So we are still at the bottom of page 221, that's passage attributed to the former holy beings. So which really tells us that we should at least have outline of the different, the practice of different level. And then, we can focus on a particular level where we need to begin. And maybe we try our best mostly to be able to gain deep insight into that level. But at the same time, with the rest of the outline, we can do the reflective meditation, right? We don't have a time to do every focused one. So we know the outline. We start where it needs to be focused, train our mind in that. We develop some kind of experience and training here. But with the rest of the things, we do the what we call kind of run through reflective meditation. And then we can follow that approach. So when the purpose of listening to teaching is to be able to use that teaching to augment our practice, right? Our contemplation and meditation. Wherever we need to expand, we know how to elucidate it. Wherever we need to bring home together, synthesize it, we know how to do that. So that's the purpose of study or listening to teaching. Otherwise, if we kind of ignore all the teachings we have received, don't kind of bring them into our meditation. Meditation means we simply choose one focus, and then we kind of lock our mind into that and don't think about anything, thinking about nothing. That kind of a meditation, thinking about nothing, is not going to yield a result. The Tibetan word talk means no profit. There's no gain here. Okay.
no gomje ra tamba gomje de tamba ding yi si de go ba de zam xue xie ba xie jie ro xi gu de ro da ka de dang ge di ka ji de ka ro se na en xue xing ge de ko ka li xie xie ani nyam leng ge de ya lo so de xia ge do di ge de ka go ro ba is gomje ra tamba ra mo ne na xue xie ga ga de da xi ja se la rin chi da se de xue xing ge ga ga ka ro se na xing ge de ge in kona gaga be yul cha su shi be to ba yul ja she in hen pedo na wo sum do she go ro wa da ting sang ang zhe de she da zhe she ne in ci she de she ci ga mu she de ne da de zhe pen ya de yo ma de she chue li she ba na shi de pedo yo ma ro wa ki be ta gum je ra le in tom ba se chue de ge she go ro wa she de gum je se de in ji jiya yi gum do de do ye ma de shi 그 검제 가서 야간 콜 드시 쉬어야 망고 시고로 어디래스 어디 검제 되는 동반 셔서 거 받았는데 애는 쉬 쉬바 시셔도 좋아시 고시 들어와 셔서 검 가서 잡나 애는 다가 나시게 쉬어야 되고 해야다 랑도 야 랑랭 따서 고거래스 검 잡 애는 가서 나궁으로 셔 애는 강가 가지 배 녀석 고스로 쳐가시 어디에 망고도 쓰기도 저 뒤에 배도 말아 저 검자니 가지 배 쌍릉으로 해로 그러면서 검자 파통도 배도 말아 어디 수 있어요.
So we're still at the bottom of page 221, where it stated the best meditators are the best teachers. Mediocre meditators meditators become mediocre teachers, and so on. Okay, and earlier, remember one of the contention is that if you want to be a teacher, then you need to listen to teaching extensively. You have to become very learned so that you have a lot of things to say, talk. But if you want to be a practice meditator, you don't need to know much. Just focus on one thing, and then that's it, right? So that contention is problematic, as we said, because what is said here is the best meditators are the best teachers, right? Because these are the ones who have internalized the teachings deeply, and then when they teach, they can teach based upon their deep experience and realizations, isn't it? Unlike somebody like me, today I don't have realization, so much of my teaching is more sort of a explanatory kind of a teaching. It's not really based upon much of realization. But the best meditators, they speak from their heart and their realizations. So therefore, they are the best teachers. So mediocre meditators become mediocre teachers. Because the earlier contention. To put it in another way is like, it is as if, study of the Dharma is a one thing. If you want to be a teacher, you want to teach others, guide others, lead, okay, that's what you do. When you practice, well, that's not needed. You just kind of think about nothing, So we are kind of dividing the teaching and the practice, divorcing it. That's not how it should be. Whatever is studied, that has to be implemented and put in practice, isn't it? And so from that point of view, extensive study or listening to teaching is very important. So the best meditators also become best teachers in that sense. Otherwise, if you think that learning and study and listening to teaching is more to do for sort of a teaching profession kind of thing, Dharma, and when you practice, you just kind of become too simple and lock your mind into thinking about nothing. And sometimes thinking about nothing, people experience blackout. Well, that's not. It shouldn't be. Your meditation, you even have to become more sharper and clear and lucid and deep, right? If you have a blackout in your meditation, that's not good. So to be able to have that deepening experience in the meditation, very lucid, very penetrative, you really need a lot of study and understanding and knowledge,
that some is in Yishi then Yemiki Sambatam, Tobai, Bonze, she Dijoji, Sevano, and Sevano, Shuni, Teda Mosum, Gereshi Yang, Teda Mishi, Yanes, Koyakala, Minemashi once. What did that child Teva Jashamu Majinana? Just in any bed, about the con depending on the rules. The Majina any girls are deliver, the grotto, and the Tobataji Bay cow, the Toba in the Gangabajaris. And the sound chair, chair, yellow Majo Gomuris, and Langeshuna, and tea calling Yangamaris go. And put Coral Semi-Trotaro. Or say that this is what I can do that the Tera Chazad, the singing be Java Hushini, and then be at using what they shower, that can semi-travel Tondalia. Then semi-trozana, in Sui Marisina, that Yishing Maraventa, Purunga Maris in Michiana, and this Yishing Marwa. What's the Tisor shower? So semi-trozana, in Marisina Yishing, the Dijo on the Mundo. Today, that the name of home you share, even of something she when take a marriage today, our man with some she teaching that there's a charge over. There's a charge over this. What did that country showing young land is a tourism she so Rondo showing that don't didn't sending here with this or sending years and then you draw on the dry your marriage. Or departing ever then they go to the gum the tail power this.
So we are over to page 222, where it is stated, as Geshe explained, that when we contemplate repeatedly the teaching we have received, then we really, gain better understanding, and we appreciate the importance of listening to teaching. That's important for our practice, and then we don't get influenced by negative friends, And because teaching leads to understanding, and contemplating that understanding leads to deeper insight. And we see that connections. Otherwise, if we get influenced by negative friends, who propound that study involves too much thinking. and too much reflection. So that's not good. Every kind of thinking and thought is problematic because it's grasping at true existence. So you want to be free from that grasping. That means you stop thinking altogether. Okay? And if we follow that kind of a contention and position, then we will not succeed in our spiritual journey. So as Geshe explained, at the monastic universities, so much emphasis is put on the debate, metaphysical debate, right? Why do monks spend so much time debating? The debating involves analytical meditation. This is through debate that you are able to challenge each other's position, the contentions, and then you kind of consolidate the understanding, you deepen the understanding, and you try to develop what we call a valid understanding of the teaching, right? The Tibetan word is sema, right? Once you are convinced validly this is what it is, then nobody can really easily influence your thinking, isn't it? Because you know, right? Through your analysis, through your thinking, through your testing, everything, you reach to the conclusion, this is authentic and valid. So this is why the monastic debate helps us to be able to reach that kind of a place. So until we reach that kind of a conclusion, or so to speak, we really need to keep on doing analysis, keep on doing meditation and thinking. Okay? Otherwise, we could be easily influenced by other people. If we have the habit of jumping on the bandwagon, right? Today somebody, very smart mouth comes and, they tell you how important it is to study and, practice is not that important. You have to learn everything, right? Then we just, okay, that's great. And the next time you meet another smart practitioner, who can convince you, no, study is not that important. What's the fun of knowing too much? Practice is what it is. And then we jump on that one. And then next time we meet another person, and we just keep on switching our position, change of the heart every now and then. That means we really don't know what to do, right? That's a really uncertainty thing about. So we really need to listen to teaching extensively. We need to contemplate the teaching over and again. We need to analyze the teaching to the extent that we ourselves have personal, right, this valid experience, tsema, right? This is it, as best as I could test it. So then others cannot easily, influence us.
대바 박레스 때지로다. 근데 셔라면은 이제 콜배 추나카리세야 저니 인지 레다스데다는 레스 요 말이 생기는 또 아시 근데 가서 뇌에 갈 때는 뇌에 갈 때는 뇌에서 아주 어디 지다 해야 말이야. 라 가지 밑에 또 아직 친구들이 소소하지 무서워서 이러러 그 기세 가가요 막 그때 고개티 가든 거 무거야 가를 때도 에는 거 무거도 저도 가고 있어서 저거로 저 뒤에서 저거를 해서 말어 어디 셔대 유제 통을 했어 어디 다 건도 지다 신예다 된지 가들라 로중이도 다 그래서 대나 이 최시도 다는 거네 신나 최대의 양다 버려도 가르에도 일 최다 거라나 다는 다 거네 되지 좋아지 요사리선 인티는 시쇼고고라. 어제 도시가 뭐도 질 대가지 애니 저도 저 몽대서 하시는 네 말이 좋아라. 어디시 그래서 카라된 거 저서 신나신디 신나신디 시설라서 내년에서 거기서 로송오사 다디디다 대다 라마 고만나지 데버디 라마 고만나지 셰덤데레도 와. 어디서 지금 신나신디 쉬다 쉬서도 이마 쉬 요는 탈라지 주고 그 가지는 요로 그 땡기야스가요 뭐 제가 다 소스 세메도데나 다 신나가지 넘버 신나가지야 지고라다 소스 세메도데다 수시에는데 엄청 생겨요 말아 제가 지시 에네디 야 차서 때보다 에는 지분 그게 나드네야 강갑에 푸순서버데 용토를 했으게서요.
So we're still on top of page 221, trying to finish off that passage, which is attributed to holy beings of the past. So what really is stated there is the need to cultivate wisdom and apply analysis and investigation is very important, right? before we believe in anything, including Dharma, right, we should take time to study it, use our critical thinking, analysis, and only when we see some kind of a point here, purpose, right, okay, this seems like meaningful, I get some taste of it, then follow it. Don't follow it blindly, because following it blindly is not good. We might have some kind of a faith in the Dharma, but if we're lacking in the wisdom and application of the wisdom, we can be easily misguided by any smart mouth. Today we will be that, and tomorrow we will be that, and so we don't know, anything for ourselves, and we don't want that. And the example given is there's a Tibetan proverb, which kind of hard to get the real sense in the English, how to say, eloquence of that. Is if we don't base things on rationality, thinking, investigation, and then we are basically copying others' behaviors. If you look at somebody laughing heartily, then we feel like laughing, right? And then if somebody's crying, then we started to cry, because emotion becomes very contagious, isn't it? And then you ask, why are you crying? What happened to you? Like, no, because he is crying. And then you're like, why are you laughing? What's funny about it? No, he's laughing. So then, it becomes silly kind of a thing, because we don't have the reason why we are laughing or crying here, So we don't want to be that. The metaphor we use is chunagangde, means like, say, if a river or water is flowing, we can divert it to any direction we like, right? If you spill a water, with your finger, you can change the course of that spill. So we don't want to be easily manipulated and misguided by X, Y, Z. Just we want to know things, firmly and based upon our own investigation. So it's important to apply wisdom to the teaching. As Geshe emphasized that, even with the Dharma, take time to study it, analyze it, do your reasoning to the extent, so where you feel, okay, this is making sense, this is kind of meaningful, then follow it, don't follow it, blindly.
In the Simji Tonsha to be here up, both that the share of Sumi Adua, that did the Simji Tonsha here of Siati, because in the Gove going to that the Geshe shall call law share with the Shin, Chitas in the Kuzo to here that Tondo here of Nina, Ganga Duorwa.
No.
Ready in that the Simji Tonshi to set up Siati in the Shaju Sembati, Simji Tonshi goes in the Simji Tonshi was Simji Korongas Pigay. 그래서 강가 찍으면서 애니걸 감도 매와지 쇼동고로 셰다데 우리 뒤에 내가 강가 해베 셰네 인 심지어 동시고로 진짜 뒤거는 그베거는 진짜 어디 심지어 동시 셰라 자이서로
No. So we are on page 222. Now we are moving to the next sub-point, which is called the division of wisdom, different types of wisdom. And the three types of wisdom are mentioned. Työndam tobe sheraf, the wisdom that knows the ultimate, the työndam, pramartha. And the wisdom that knows the conventional, or the Phuntsok in Tibetan, or the samvritti satya, and then there's the wisdom that knows how to, help or benefit sentient beings, the third one. Broadly stated, maybe all kinds of wisdoms are related to or inclusive within the first two types of wisdom, right? Wisdoms that knows the ultimate, or the wisdom that knows the conventional. But why there is a mention separately of the wisdom that knows how to benefit sentient beings is because for bodhisattvas, perhaps this is the most important thing, right? Their whole motivation and the heart is that they want to benefit sentient beings, So that means sentient beings are just innumerable, have different mental dispositions, different capacities, abilities. So bodhisattvas have to know, right, the different mental dispositions, capacities of the sentient beings to be able to benefit them, utmost. So that's why the wisdom that knows how to benefit sentient beings is kind of talked about separately. Otherwise, it could be included in the other two, especially in the wisdom that knows the conventional, right? We can kind of fall into that.
당번에 다음에 대관은 도지고는 제와 무슨 무디 제고는 제와 Tiri da shera khoro nguwa shena ene ta ene tondo tokwa shera tila dame tongshi tsuki tokwa ta ngosum tokwa ta tongshi tokwa sayade terwa korsa sewa majab shene tiri rikpe kwa dro mato tiri lada ene peke tongi phasali ta ringpo ripo shayashi peke shayatela tongshi tsuki tokwa sewa ta lada tongi peke chudu chudrewa ripo chudu shayasi droya tela lo kono peke tongpe ngani peke dredwa ripo tela ene tongi ngosum tokwa sewa sida dire ta tongi ngosum tokwa sayade ene kante tikpa kare ina di paklam tonglum mato pati kante ginti kunjo mare pati ene towa yamarawa paklam towa ta tongi ngosum towa tunyumrawa ote ta ngoshan sin dire sha.
So in the middle of page 222, wisdom that knows the ultimate. Wisdom that knows the ultimate cognizes the reality of selflessness either by means of a concept or in a direct manner, unquote. So explanation given on that, as when we talk about wisdom that knows the ultimate or paramartha, Dendam Demba, the way this wisdom can know or perceive the ultimate is in two ways. One is the conceptual wisdom or the knowing of the ultimate. Right? So conceptual in the sense that there is what we call the generic image of emptiness, of selflessness. That is kind of in between one's understanding of the realization of the ultimate and ultimate as an object. And there's something in between the object and your subject perception. It's mediated by that concept. Okay? And so which means there's still a distance, isn't it? There's a distance between emptiness or selflessness as the focus object and the wisdom that knows it. But the direct realization of perception of emptiness is the non-dual. Isn't it? This is the example we use is if we are going to mix two water together, we cannot separate the two waters from each other because it's just so like that the direct realization, the wisdom that cognizes emptiness is as if it is non-dual with the objective emptiness or the selflessness. So those are the two ways of knowing the ultimate: the conceptual knowing and the non-conceptual knowing of emptiness or selflessness.
ngosung towa ngel thongsi suki togo korwa, sheta thongsi togo yinza, thongsi suki togo tokpa sonda, ta tokpa ganga ini denzi re sayadi, ta jaksu yinpade dene gosa hako kodwa. Thongpo thongsi suki to, ini ko yu rungpo kom, dene shila sungri shi ni mangpo kom, ini dene ngosung togo rima to shio, thongpo tongi thapa tokdu san ngosung toga yo marwa. Sheta ta tokpa ganga be lokshi ri pangur sayadi, ini ta So
when we look at that carefully, that wisdom that knows the ultimate section, what's mentioned first is that the wisdom that knows the selflessness or emptiness conceptually, isn't it? So the wisdom that knows the wisdom conceptually, that wisdom is not a wisdom grasping at self, isn't it? The earlier contention where people think that you should stop thinking altogether because any kind of thinking or thought is necessarily grasping at the self. Now that does not hold water, isn't it? Because here is wisdom that is conceptualizing, conceptually cognizing selfless emptiness, but is not grasping at the self. Okay, and of course, we have to go through the process for this conceptual wisdom to transform into non-conceptual wisdom, isn't it? The process involves where we cultivate calm abiding or shamatha. Then we integrate this wisdom, which is a special insight with calm abiding. We continue our practice, and then through this process, the conceptual knowledge or the understanding of selflessness, it becomes a non-conceptual direct realization of emptiness. Okay.
케베 쉐라데스 너데젤 리베 네가다 케어 마시나 Phuntsok ke tabji shinyi mingyur te na shenta sarju yezong tang danyi kunshi chaji tel zizong sha shesong pa tar sa terya tenpa le mimu nam sarje we cher da da tenzi rikpa tang sa da di yenla di shendong gyura dirwa oda ka simche tongshi seya di isa rewa ka le adi kunsob dirwa di sa Teresi jeda di cheso bata temba de mimu nam an sa jewi chirse in data se du dan ngam de yige to ne pe data ko ne de wa tenzi si de dan in river de wa nam re river na shi shi o ti de ya in be temba le mimu sa je ya to da la ti go re data tenzi river ni go go res riwa ta ko zo li pe ke se she ka je ko le nyen to so go ro wa ti she 다 리바도 뭐반나라 세 팬다비치 소도 소야 리바다 세라와 뭐반나라 세 다 디게 다 땡지다 디게 가이 먹고시 최 대바 연습이거와 제가 뭐반나라 팬다비치 소도 소야 리바다 세라와 디시 디 소야 리바시 어디를 다 소야 리바 디 소리바세 티는 디도 두고이사래 다 간제 간제 비게 뺑원저 담녀세 저 Tire ganga te sorry when the rugi sarwa. What did you go? Tia Karasana Tata Tire doa, Tise Gibo Rabka said the Sanji in the Tamoti done, Chu Song Marwa. Kono Pepima Kiva Huche, any Konoting Ajes, then Sanji Chu Mashis Dejan. In Sanji and the Pima can choose and go on Pima Town with a Suzuwa.
No.
병원님 뭐 쉬다니 그런 데를 야가서 터지 천자선 다 그런 아주 쉬어라. 이제 당시 그 야초스 된 그냥도 병원 땅. 이제 병원에 사지 병원 기바치 제당나게 다가지. 연이 전에 깨랑 잘 땅에 그 다가나 있던 냠도 동타버리 시도와. 이제 간들 사지 병원에 매버세. 이제 간들 깨 다가자고. 이제 그 집을 제는 그 Keja is someone. Any question pay Gajeru Gaga Chom, and sure songs say to her. With this sort of that Shendor Shidong Yala, you're not the
So next is wisdom that knows the conventional of Phuntsok, Samvriti Satya. And here, the wisdom that knows the conventional is explained in regards to the 5 topics of knowledge, 5 domains of knowledge, if you will. So those domains include study of the grammar and logic, and also arts and crafts and healing science, and the Buddhist cognitive science here. And as Geshe explained, that in order to be able to understand the Dharma well, to decode the meaning, grammar becomes very essential, important, right? And also to be able to explain things to others, that linguistic ability, it becomes very important. So that's why it's a field of study here. And the logic, we call it metaphysics, or that's very important to be able to analyze things and to be able to establish the validity of ideas. And crafts, Sorikba in Tibetan, Geshe thinks that it includes many things, also music. And the example comes to Geshe's mind is, I think there is kind of a legendary story about Tise Gyabo Rabkaf. Now I don't have the Indian name of that musician, who seems to be very good, kind of a genius in playing a stringed musical instrument. I think it's a fiddle, but maybe violin, let's say, stringed musical instrument, piwang in Tibetan. And so Buddha first did not really go and teach him Dharma, right? So Buddha kind of manifested himself into a musician, and he played the same instrument, right? And so he was kind of intrigued by that. There's another guy who is as good as me, or so he's kind of interested. So then they started to compete, their musical skill. So both of them were good in the beginning, and then they started to remove each string, right? Even with one string, they both could equally well, you know. And then at a certain point, Buddha just took out all the strings, and he could still, you know, he was playing a music. So the guy did the same thing, and he couldn't. He thought, no, this is strange, you know, person here. And then he kind of became curious George here, so to speak, and he kind of asked. And then Buddha had the chance to kind of skillfully, guide him into practice. So that's why those skills, musical talents, become important to be able to attract people, right, skillfully and lead into the Dharma path. Who knows?
Rani Queen Sheva Cherry Cherry, non Ribaso, Gova Shidaba in the Titamji Jang Kashidaba, Titamji Sanji Tobi Cherry Tsu and Shidameva was. Or Tirika, that reading and so in Shanda Peta, non rewarded. Rani Queen Sheva Cherry, Dal, any big shidder, Lambda, Jibinega, Gajan, Nando Ribok, Karza, Nambek Sanji with Ashes. Number the chamber golden toya any rimbajorwa. Body here todala in the Nando regarded Sirwa. In the addition de young that Nando were my vision that summer to the young Sanji toya big carsati, the Yala Marvis in the Yala race, Cotonachi Boris, Sigbaris, Sanji toya Yala in Bachibaris. In the Toshin revision, Sanji toya later Nando regard the Zoyarwa. Or the insect. At that time, Sanji Tabishi the son, Shijameva was citizen, in Sonjibella Gangalia, Zonotavishi the mother, Tim might be going with the Laumara, which is the Shitaya Maris, and Tiaganga in the Lamgu Yana Rogora. No, what the insect.
So, as we mentioned, then there is what called Buddhist study, let's call it, the domain of knowledge. Although the term itself means kind of a, inner science, right? Nangdön Rigpa. So which really pertains to, Buddha's discourse on the complete structure of the path leading to different spiritual destinations. So it's more meant initially for the individual, for the self, right? For oneself to grow spiritually, the study of Buddhism or this Buddhist study is essential, and so of these 5 topics of knowledge or domains of knowledge, the one which is given much importance, most importance is the science of the inner mind, so to speak, the Buddhist the knowledge. The others are important. If for us to become a Buddha, we need to know everything, right? There's no such Buddha who doesn't know something. Those other things are secondary, but the most important part is the Buddhist study, because the Buddhist study is really all aimed, for inner transformation and finding the liberation and enlightenment. Though all other domains do not do that, right? Art and science are not meant to become a Buddha, necessarily. Yeah, it can be supplemental course, but it's not designed to. The grammar is not designed to make you be Buddha, as you can see the point. Yeah. So we will stop there, and we welcome your questions. Page.
Thank you, Geshe. Yeah. In reference to something we mentioned all the way in the beginning, and we bring it up, the alternating between analytical and stabilized meditation. So let's look at that. I'm just curious about what's actually going on there. So let's take an example so that this just begins to make sense. Is it that we analyze an aspect of an object and then we concentrate on that, then we analyze another aspect of it and we concentrate, or is it one thing and we keep analyzing the same thing? And why do we keep going back and forth is the question. I'm trying to understand why we keep going back. Okay. Are we progressing? Okay. Or are we we lose it, so we have to go back to it, and then we lose it, then we have to, is that what's going on?
Okay, sure. 뭐라 간데 쇼데 디레겐다 가르슈고레다기 ngazungyendeliyada kombala chieme bo kombara wagen toba ka chenjin chen digi mare sa jor wagen chide kanliyada kanje 제바 체디시라 개침부래 근데 학바도 젠조 빼마 세진함 주순도 거와게 그래서 젠조 빼마 세디로와게 동당 엄마도 간대지를 순거래서 와디 간대시로 제사 빼나다 소속이 최진 강인배네로와게 동마들 제바지체 그 넘버를 찾으러 와 제바체시오 네가 셈야 내제 심로와게 조금 제 양데네 최대기 넘버 샹바지로와게 제바체 네가 조금 전에 야지 가서 열게도 마선 로데거래 야면나 최 다가라로 봐게 제바체 조금 제바체 다가라랑자 하고 조금 제대로디 김전으로 가려 그래서 다 전조 빼마세야 돼 간대를 쓰고
제저 빼마세 됐어다. 그래서 제바시에는 유저 상호당 봐시고 봐. 벤다 간다 되지 좋아다. 먼저 남기다 제지 금로 뒤시고 벤다 빼딩에 현대 콜라 그래와. 먼저 빼나 매 소를 막아 되지나. 이거 바로 내가 지고 되지. 아니 건설을 되잖아. 그 예말라 네바드리스타 그선 예자라 셰서 단도 니제 셰서 시디서 퀄리아 아니 미국 콘로드 흉셔를 두고라 셰서 유저 뭐보다는 예말라시 영시 디레시스 디레시 제바시바 시그라 힘주셔 다티 치는 콘 리브 칼레가서는 로드 콘로드 흉셔를 두고 어때나 이거도 정주심 거바이나 정주심 다가래 선생님 돌아서서는 정주심 지하여 봐라 제가 타고 야는 심이 나기 냠제나다 유대명아 되는 가지 심지어서 마르시 딜 아니 카디스서 마르 소세디 마페시 인지 카디 뭐고 섬지살 인 심이를 봐 좋아하시 얘기도 와 어딜래네 야야 고민이 흉셔보시 어머니라다 심지어 통도 식트 고탈주리스 소설 배자 통 다가도 카디 장다 다리 소설이 라고시아 고급지라 좀 애니 까지 망보 제선다스 비통시야 로슈쇼 두고래 어때 도스 사모도한테 제공레스 다데서도 다인 심지타베도 애니 저 탑고 좀 타지니 샤가들 가래 조금 다인에 고단데 제조 제디 시치그라는 제바 제제 되게 많고 다야 가서 그래 야게 맞다는 시치 다 야제 다도 가디다 유제 가세 파메 번다 먼저 나비 셔주세요는 마시베 내가 가디 마시베 내가 신제까지 그 유저 뭐 쉬워라 어디게 다디 셔주세 산지 신제타에도 산제타야 어디 숙청보 유명한 동서 유저 뭐 상고로
그래
그래와
디디로게 다변 다 마셰르 버전 고즈마로 와게 내가 첸조체 마셰디 첸조체 사서서나 다 틴덴 첸조체 두스 야도에로 와서
데데데 지던 드라이 당에 내찍을 쉬워다
롱
다 마셰드 다들 마셰드 인제 간거 깨고야 당보 이제 가와트서는 마시드 까진 셴보여장 어디까진 산에는 걸 지내서야 돼 상고고로 와 다들 까진 가서 샤위나 이제 가서 산에 드지게 있는 지내서야 숙셔를 두고 와 뒤로는 인제 쇼셔도 저를 쓰면 지금 무자자시로 되고로 어디 지금스나 어디 다 데레스 조금서도 당원이 심지어서 셔주마다 타면도 무슨 조정타고 타지니 뒤가 밖에 셈지야 돼 그래 조금
조금 집에 거버도 같이 오거든
나
조금 제 거버도 같이 하도 오거든
거버도 됐어 그래서 타지 너무 이제 그래서니 조서도 붙지않으면 편도 말어
알아요
좋아다 제와시니 지금 조사 그거라 어디서 나도 조금 세
So I'll just make sure that I answer different parts of your question. So I'll have to go back and repeat different parts of the question here. So when we talk about analytical meditation, in a very generic sense, this is the use of the critical thinking part, right? Why, like usually we say why, how, what it is, right? When think anything kind of reasoning, so that involves some analysis. Even with the negativity, the example which Geshe started off, is like, if we think about a person, who harmed us some time back, right? And then we think, okay, that's the one who really gave me a hard time, right? So if we think about that kind of reasoning, then, it generates a stronger anger, right? Then we think more like, well, not only the other day, then again, the next day he did that, right? And it just, kind of... So that analysis kind of makes our mind kind of, how should I say, in this case, the anger stronger, isn't it? So now we apply the analysis to a positive thing in the sense, so it helps us to be able to generate a stronger state of the mind. So the example Geshe uses is, let's say, we are cultivating bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment, right? Whichever techniques we follow, equalizing, exchanging self with others, or the 6 causes, 1 result, or whatever we're following. So in the beginning, when we reflect on each point, so we do the analysis first. So analysis helps us to be able to, let's say, thinking about the kindness of all sentient beings. We find many reasons why sentient beings have been kind to us, right? Not in one way, multiple ways. So that kind of thinking helps us to be able to appreciate more strongly, right? And the connection with the sentient beings, that state of mind. So when we are convinced through this analysis, okay, yes, sentient beings and I have this strong bond and connection, right? Then we can place our mind on that. So that is the single-pointed kind of meditation, right? We reach a conclusion, right? Because analysis has to yield some conclusion somewhere, right? And then, of course, we do this until we really develop the actual sort of insight. Then we can move to the next level and do the same thing, alternate between analysis. Now, after, like I said, remembering the kindness, then thinking of repaying the kindness, right? Yeah, so it's progressive, right? Progressive in that sense. Yes, yeah.
One is meditating on the absence of inherent existence,
Right.
and they have reached that inferentially, not
right.
directly. Is there now, then there's nothing to go forward unless there's now the progressing so that it becomes
The direct.
direct.
Okay, yeah. That when I did that again, also the did about 동관이면 다음에 바기 되는 다스게 제가 체비나 로바게 다 제가 체도 제가 다 체비나 아니 당부들 다 든지시들 다음에 고도를 시키고 로바게 다 다가 가리야 셈샤정 가지고 공자대디 다 딘데기 고도디 다 들어바게 가서 그래 고도디 다 가서 귤람디 토네 아니 무슨 로바게 또 맞게 봐도 다 검대 잡는 거디 체도 로바서 다가 대도 주로다 로바 Yeah, so once, let's say, I think our first attempt at understanding the absence of intrinsic reality is master all that analysis and reasoning. Once we're convinced, this is it, right? So let's say we have inferential understanding of that. So we continue our meditation as a process to be able to peel off those layers of conceptuality. So that slowly through this process, it transforms into the non-conceptual.
Nugiade kamambo sia dire gaga sawo hira to ne de musin khol da be les lo no tabun to sia ji lo leg bare
No.
o ti ta je de
No.
조금 세가라
No.
그때 정직습 간가다 심지에 뒤에 가리나 다 겨가 돼서 다 심지에 데 상제마다 tab은 센 그게 탁조를 해야 되는 조금 세가라 다 이거가 가서 하나샤 양바 예르도는 양신의 유대 삼었던 제공세가라.
So in the case of bodhicitta kind of meditation, so in the beginning we do the analytical meditation, we find all the different reasons why sentient beings have been very kind and intimately connected to us, right? So this analysis, let's say we are convinced, our mind, that yes, sentient beings have been very kind, I appreciate it very deeply, right? Then we put our mind in that. But then if that mindset becomes weak, right, somehow, then we do analysis again to be able to stabilize that mind, right? And then there's a progression. We can move to the next level. So in the case of the negativity, when you think more about the person who has given us a lot of hard time, and then, the anger becomes stronger. At a certain point, where we make decision, if I see him next time, I'm just going to hit him, punch him in the face, right? That's my decision, right? So we kind of, it's a bad example, but he's your decision there, placement, like now I'm ready, next time I meet, I'm just going to punch it, yeah. So here's the bodhicitta is like, I have to do it. Bodhicitta is the way to go. There's no other way, right? But if it slows down, then we have to do analysis again to be able to, strengthen it. Yeah. No, yeah.
You mentioned.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
You mentioned practice being motivated by upasaka precepts, sila.
Mm-hmm.
And I know here in the West, one of the things we kind of don't like is religions telling us what to do, basically.
Right.
So, and that is manifested many times when we have many gurus who seem very wise, but kind of do what they wanted. Their ethical practice
Right.
questionable. So, how would Geshe recommend to us as Westerners ways to engage or further wisdom and appreciation of the Shila, the ethics, to have
Okay.
support healthier
Sure.
sanghas?
Sure. Yeah, I think I understood. Yeah. So Quran can show the dire. That and then the Kalishugure. That can Casore. Tobata Yamlin Yamdo Rosa Jorwagi. Yamne Chidio Gana. That she's also rubbing and any so Damji Dombakare Kalam with the Sungures Robagi. That I can give person and Delia. That was among the Changdom, the Snadom Land, the maybe in a that can you go to Sumberwagi. So the Dinga should see your or again. That you got someone look bad. Shooting soon be taught in your nature was again. The Koran so Nubjo, Salon Cheshire with the Zogi. Young Koranzo deal Tatan the Ganges ticket wage, Delgin Kalupshiro Nasa. Phuntsok Ganges Sidugalaya, Namju Koranzo churn and Dichi Mongol lover again. Sidugan now I'm going to chat the one. Dichi Mani, Jixel lover again. Chazan, then the shooting digi, the cage and Boyimba, again. Nubjob is some again. Shooting by the society, a chair or chairman, team gave or Maimbas or again. There are some tongue of Karina, loves a Caribbean answer again. Koranzo de Tatang ever chatter, that sure you can much say, set out your again, Majin, so much, she much again.
Today, that and not direct. You don't say that they love of Jire, Penna, and the same year, Savasha, Nisha, and it jumped at Jayan over the Ganga, the Nujo Jagala, those girl.
No.
Sigmare. No. And this seems to miss in the temple polo.
No.
What they call Kanjakata is Girsoso Nuya Jeda, and Chizola Nuya Jeda, or did Nuya the Ganga to know the war.
No.
So that is here in the today's social new that church in the day temple gets at the Yomadi and Joashima and I mean Yungu gets a shiver. The Joashima woman said de la co made it because me Mamma said don't get what you know. And me ganga tel duja zero. No. Or the duja zero, the shelter that she measures and the San Yusun carries and this word. San is just human, say what in the Japan. No. But San is just measures you could have lost in young San Yik, the Lada Yagomaro, or the Nigomaro. No. The San is just showing the good job some child Roson. No. In the Japan. No. See what? Oh, this is what we. Right.
So Geshe feels that if that's even in like in a general sense, like in common sense way, not even related to the dharma or religion, we say that if you kill someone, that's considered as a bad negativity, right? Nobody should be doing that, or stealing, whatever, right? And that everybody accepts, right? Nobody feels that that is a restriction put on you, but that makes sense, and that's a bad thing. So in that sense, like a lot of our ethical practice is something to do with that, right? Don't kill, don't steal, right? Don't hurt other people, right? And so I think if we think about what in the benefits, the pros and cons about that, right, for ourselves, then I think we might feel it's not so much like Buddha is imposing a lot of restrictions, rules, and regulations on us, right? As a matter of fact, Buddha, the way is that if you decide to follow my way, right, then these are what my advice is, telling you. So it's the choice is in our hand. It's not like Buddha required us, right, to do that. So I think it's more to do with one's own kind of thinking. Does this make sense in ethical, and why, follow this particular code of ethics or not? So I think that way we don't feel it's a restriction imposed on us, but it's just a choice given to us that we see the benefit and outcome it.
Getting back to the generic image,
sure.
As Geshe mentioned, peeling away the layers of conceptuality.
Well,
so is that a conceptual process, or is that a non-conceptual process?
The peeling process.
What allows for us to,
peel
in
off.
The process of meditation, overcome conceptuality and open into direct perception?
Sure, yeah. Then the condition that the Tangma Gichiwa de Lakin Dewacha the one. Tangbo Tony in a Kalian Tunji should double again. That Tunji ding and so Comji Wangi, Tunji Kita Kalso again, Tunji the Passed go again. Answer the Chin attack Alabore, Perishab and again, did one. Song Robinson Copaco should go again. Says and the Tunji Passed, Gulam di Kalsoria, Tong Megi, some Madan shed or Kotoka Chigger again. Say there, talk 똑같이 세르고 가르치고 그래서 딱 공부좀 차르고 그러게 띠나
래. 다 듣지워다 너도 해다 들다 조금 실 주고라데 hilā sūngzhī gugōr, tā kāñchī ngōsō shīwā āli hilā sūngzhī tōba mācā tī gugōr wā. Hilā sūngzhī tī gōm tī sāla, āni kāñchōm tī tī āni pīkē yu dā yu shē yī tsū tā yā rā sōng rā rā. Tā sōsō tā na jōnum chū rā tī wā lī na pīchē wē tā chūl shūyā sō rā nāwa shāyā tī tsā gugōr wā. Tī rā tā tā jāngā jāng tī sāng tā, āni tōng tō sā na. 근데 현다 무슨도 도고다 장게 가가 똑바르다.
똑바르 왕게 전다 간제 디게 똑바르 무슨 교드려야 되고 검지 왕게 차르고 저.
그 샤워. 똑바르 거라 곰곰 비슷다 잔다 똑바르 무슨 레고 거라. 어디 검지 샤워.
알 셈디 고 유르 예르 체데 똑바르 세르고. Yes, I mean that process, how the inferential understanding of, let's say, reality through meditation. That meditation process is a conceptual process. We're still thinking. But that conceptual process, what it helps us is, we cultivate more and more familiarity and intimacy with the object. So that kind of the familiarity, it somehow cuts off the distance between our perception of the object. We come closer to as if, to the objects. And so let's say when we are on the supramundane level of the path of preparation, the experience somebody has is as if my mind is one with the object now, although it isn't, because only that happens on the path of seeing, but at least on that level one feels it. So it's a conceptual process, that's peeling of the layers. But through this conceptual process, what's happening is we're cultivating more and more intimacy, right? Perceptual intimacy with the object, and the distance is somehow reduced through this level. Yeah.
Okay, well, as Rana mentioned, I mean, it's getting to that place where you think that you've actually kind of stabilized your conceptualization, and then you're working at still continuing to meditate on a stabilized understanding of it. So there's these last layers of the generic image you're trying to work away. At that point, is there still conceptualization going on, or is it non-conceptual, somehow getting rid of
the last? Okay, yeah. Okay, so one thing Geshe said earlier is, all of these things are based upon the assumption that we have cultivated calm abiding and shamatha integrated method. Okay, so I disagree. That under the because tunjisudu tobar wage, tobar de that those complicated wangi that tunjid basse do the wage, that tunjid tama said right or wage, Pongusum Hazangwala. Dindegi take negab shiomar wage, negab de that also wanzina, tunji negab chadore, that the musum wage, don't make it negab chador, karcharu, but that could tunjid say tamar shiomar wage, some musum guru or wage, Takale that yana that.
That way, Pigeon goes to talk to us about Jolun Tang, Church of Shimasedra, the talk about the war. That the talk about the Kati Mare, Muslim by Muslim Shishia, Kati Chinsona. Did it die in the Kotoba and Shara? They put the talk about Shido. And they talk about each other. Yeah, even at the almost like the last minute of where the inferential becomes the non-inferential cognition, the last stage, which is, let's say, at the last moment of the supramundane level of path of preparation, it's a very subtle conceptuality still. But then, in the next moment, it becomes the non-conceptual, by the power of that familiarity you have cultivated. Yeah.
Is that involving reasoning, even at that very subtle level?
Di kabdu de la tanda ke kyunzen samla tang ko na mena sa ta bena jonam chojo kablu ro ba ge ta ko ja de ka le tanda kyunzen de samla tang de ge na ya to ba ro ge
ta kharza de ro ta kyunzen samla tang ta samu nyam ba
ma di cha de me de ngeng de kyunzen ga ji ga nyamsha pyo sa jo ma ba ge di so chak me ka za
tanda de jonam chojo nyamsha ja po ro wa tanda de shi wo da jonam de jonam le ya je do nyamsha sha ro wa
na le
ta pen jonam Seva Jeda Jeda Tamboton you'd shivala, you don't have no you don't know you shit that you shit that they shagra. They shall do the cost never share drone. That Susan Shimoka did that page, Kishira Mavis or be picture should do Monday instead of shower.
Yamsha Chagor.
Yamsha.
A typical Tomer Chagomar again.
Don't make Yamsha, Yamsha, Tokola, Yamsha, Chasho, Chasho. Oh, did it? 다 디가 다다 찍혀야 되잖아 봐. 다다 진짜 용도인 곳은 또 와대 용 발라. 근데 배는 강저 다다 동이 강저 또 쇼거라. 다다 배 기저 또 쇼거디. 히라 마저 샤. 근데 동이 니마다 와 이곰곰도 시대는 인디는 곳은 고 조토야 말았어. 인식 문지. 히라 순조거라. 그때 말아 보도 그래서 다 곰데 야 곳은 고 조토.
the intimate shilad was. Even in the last moment, you know how when we talk about that you do the analytical meditation, then you do the single-pointed meditation, right? Then you do again analysis like that. I'm alternate between those two. Even at the last moment, technically we said it's still a conceptual state of mind. Although the one who's experiencing it almost seems like your mind has become one with the object. It's that subtle, conceptual. But what Geshe wants to clarify here is. Calm abiding and special insight integration is a must. At our level, let's say, we may have some correct understanding, inferential understanding, emptiness. Until and unless we cultivate calm abiding and special insight, this understanding alone, doing meditation, is not going to transform into non-conceptual. So I think that the integration of calm abiding, shamatha, and vipassana is essential to this transformation practice.
What did it Karsa? Same because the Hine Marov Karsina Gomka Yana, Chingu Yonga was same to Temple hit never Tadaji, Kawai Tana, Tana Township, Shana Shashi, Tea on Mother Body, Muzum, Doto Yamarva, or Tito Hilado.
So at our stage, even if let's say we assume our meditation is going really well, even somewhere, there is what we call subtle laxity and excitement somewhere. We don't recognize it. So that's always disrupting, our process. So until we are free of laxity and excitement, coarse and subtle form, we really cannot penetrate deeply, the reality. So that's why calm abiding and special insight integration is essential for the process, right? Transforming the inferential understanding into non-conceptual or non-inferential perception. Okay, so before we do the dedication, I have to check this with you. Next Sunday is Christmas Eve, okay? And some of you seems like informed Lama Phuntsok that maybe break would be nice. Some of you said you want to come, so I don't know. So he's kind of a little confused to make a decision. So I'll say, if the majority wants a teaching, there will be teaching next Sunday. If the majority say, okay, let's have a Christmas break, so then there will be Christmas break. So show the hand, how many would you say have a break? Or how many say you want to come to teaching? It doesn't matter. We are not evaluating you per se. We're just making,
Which year are you asking? Ask how many want a break or how many.
How many want a break? 1, 2. Okay, how many want a teaching? Okay, so there is a teaching majority. That's the decision. Okay. So, Geshe understood it, so I don't need to translate. Sanima Shuma, the Christmas ki Tangun Kedua, the Sunji Shag Machas, the Sunju call up some again. No. You have a chet, Sunji. Sunji, you have a chet. No. Yeah. So Geshe looks happy. Gange Lord, Dimien, Dinda, Ninda, Lambda, Rabsa, Jinye, Zerga, Shishin, Sishin, Nije, Tuga, Lebamze, Kanda, Sibe, Lozo, Dunge, Gisebe, Lozo, Yula, Puji, Taze, Yala, Tuji, Luda, Shero, Nimo, Leje, Chanto, Trenze, Maria, Muse, Dunge, Yugo, Sinye, Cheze, Dede, Daje, Saju, Taze, Yende, Lunzo, Geshe, Pugu, Chuda, Chuni, Talume, Jambe, Yangla, de Omara Bazana, Omara Bazana, de Senden Jeje, Jenra Veseje, Talu Temo Memba, Kada Denje Shunlo, Doba Ye, Lode, Zedo, Lode Gazi, Udon Bega de Gezan Pongwe, Judo, Memba Shen, Demba Zenla, Wando Yicho, Chanyan Shogun Jola, So Wan De. Obeisance to my Guru and protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, weaving down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arapaza Nadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I can gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord Sang Tenzing Wangda, respectfully I pray. Thân sắc nói trên đầu thân bài đầu, hành thiên sàng nương mày thô mày, hành đó ngài khâu mày phân còi, đang thị thảo. Chanjo senjo rinpoche ma ye ba na ye yo je che ba nyam ba me ba ya kone gondo pe wa jo to ni da wa rinpoche ma ye ba na ye yo ye ba nyam ba me ba yang kon ne kon pe wa yo sa ji be ji jo ji me do zhang re ra lin ji nin de yin ba de sang jie jin do mi de we wa ye an zhou wen jue ba yo kan re ra we guo wei xin gan de pen dan de wa ma le zhong wei ne qian re zi wang din xin jia zuo ye xia wei si dian ba dian jun ji yi dan gu zhu ran na man de la ni yan da yo